What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Well, it's been a couple weeks, and the York Show happened back in October 12th and 13th, and I had a fantastic time, and I wanted to talk with you tonight a little bit about Bingo Row. You've heard me talk about it, talk it up, lo these many years, and it's happened again. So Bingo Row, every year we try to put together as many different unique bingo pinball games as possible to fill out the row and have these different games for people to play and enjoy and experience for the first time, or maybe the 100th time. Players of all skill levels and ages are welcome, and it generally is a great success, and it's a lot of fun. So this year I brought the multi-bingo, and this year was the first year that it had accurate audio as well as animations for the coin flash, as well as the mechanical movement of the different box mechanical animations, like the magic screen or magic squares or magic lines. So that was really exciting for me, getting people to try that and seeing their reactions. But I also brought United's Caravan, and Caravan is a game with, I think, one of the most beautiful art packages. It was made by United, as I said, and it is one of 3 games with the Roto feature. Now, the Roto is kind of United's answer to Magic Squares. It doesn't work exactly like a Magic Squares game does. The Roto itself rotates 8 numbers around instead of 4. And they rotate around the center number on the bingo card. But it is neat to watch. The way that mechanism is made is quite different from how Bally made theirs. Bally had essentially 2 pieces of plastic, which are screwed together. So you have a number, and then that is screwed to a larger circular piece of plastic, and that rotates around. And as it does, because there's only one screw on each number, they fall into position as it rotates. It's pretty cool. United's version, however, the Roto, works quite differently. So the Roto is a carousel. It's motor driven, as is the Magic Squares, but each of the 8 numbers that comprises the Roto actually moves independently, and they physically rotate around. It's quite exciting to watch by comparison, because they spread apart and then push back together as they land in the appropriate spot. Pretty neat. Very cool, and it's all done with a very large Bakelite cam, basically. So as the motor's engaged, the numbers are forced to spread apart and then back together. Again, pretty cool. So that's United Caravan. And further on, we had Mickey Treat with his United Starlet. Starlet is another game made by United, and the second of 3 games with the Roto feature. That Roto feature is just as engaging on Starlet as it is on Caravan. Starlet had a couple of issues that we worked through very early on, and it was a reliable game for the rest of the show. It'll need a good teardown probably to make it fully reliable, but it did last through the show, and that was good. The Roto feature works a little bit differently on Starlet than it does on Caravan, in that the Roto feature itself works in the same way, but the scoring works differently. In Caravan, there's a feature called the red diagonals, and these are the off diagonals. So you have your main diagonals or your primary diagonals on the bingo card, which run right through the center, and then you have everything else that's diagonal, and normally that doesn't score, but on Caravan it can if you have the feature lit. On Starlit there are no red diagonals, so instead the score boosting feature that it has is that your horizontal scores can score separately than vertical. So if you were to get a cross shape on the bingo card, you would be having a bit of a better time than you would on Caravan, where that would score the same, meaning you would only score one time versus twice. So that's Starlit. And moving on, there was Bikini, and Mike Lauda fixed that up for Mickey Treat, and it developed some problems as well. There was a short that hadn't been found, but had kind of resolved itself, and unfortunately it found itself again at the show. So managed to get that rolling, and I believe Mike and Jeffrey got that fixed at the show. But yeah, the only way to make it run without blowing a fuse was to have the back door open. But it ran, and people were playing it all weekend, so it made it through. The next thing that came was Bally's Nightclub, and Jeffrey Lawton brought that. That happens to be the same nightclub that I first played on several years ago, and that made me fall in love with the Magic Squares. I really love the Magic Squares, and I really love Nightclub, and most likely for that reason. It's just a special game to me because of that, and the features that it has make it an extremely fun player. Being able to get quadruple scoring in one color or the other is pretty neat. So moving on in the row, we had Jim Holder with his Miss Universe, and Miss Universe got a ton of play this year, and that was good to see. Miss Universe is kind of an oddball game in that it only has 3 balls, so instead of the typical 5 ball, you only have 3 shots. So the game makes up for that with a lot of spotted numbers, but you have to earn the spotted numbers through coin play, so there's no guarantee that you'll have one or many spotted numbers by the time you're finished coining up. Unfortunately, that makes the game very difficult. The bingo card layout is also non-standard, so it's not a 5x5 grid. It is a much wider and shorter grid. You have 3 numbers max vertically, and horizontally you have 6 numbers. So you can have many spotted numbers, I think up to 4 spotted numbers, which certainly helps, but it is hard to put together a hit on that. Somebody was hitting that game left and right, though. They racked up almost a couple thousand credits, which is very hard to do, and that was cool to see. So glad that Jim brought that, and glad that people got enjoyment out of that, and people got enjoyment out of all the games. It's always exciting to see. Next up, Mike Lauda and Bingo Butch brought United Serenade, and Serenade is a game that had only been found at the beginning of last year. Nobody had ever heard of it before. It doesn't show up on any production lists, and nobody knew anything about it. But a fellow reached out to me and asked what that game might be worth, and what the deal was with it, and I let him know it was one of a kind. So it was really neat to see this at the show, and obviously Bingo Butch and Mike picked that up at some point here in the intervening time, and Mike fixed it up and brought it to share with everybody. The game has it's a sample game, and there are about 6 extra meters installed, and they're activated by a relay through a Jones plug selector. So you can turn them on or off, and it measures things like the number of 5 in the lines, the number of times the player goes for extra ball, that kind of thing. And that's obviously used to help determine if the game is too easy or too hard, or what exactly is going on, and the money intake that is incumbent upon those features. So it's a pretty interesting setup, and it's really neat to see. So aside from those games, there was one other that came, and that is Bally's High Flyer, and that was brought by Chad, Len, Ed, and Ed. Those are some extremely nice guys who I meet every year, and they're always big supporters of the Bingo Row, and I'm very grateful that they are willing to set up at the show and have the game for sale, actually, and it was purchased there. High Flyer is a 6 card. It's one of the later 6 cards, and as such, it's got red diagonal scoring. It was the first game Bally made with red diagonal scoring, and the traditional 76 card complement of features, double or nothing, super lines, and corners. And on High Flyer and the games that came after, the corners and super lines can be enabled by coin play, meaning the game has an 8 coin max for enabling all the cards and then the red diagonals, but upon shooting your first ball, the rollovers may light, either one or both, and award you, when hit, the corners on every card or the super lines on every card. Very useful feature, and very helpful, if you're on your 5th ball and you happen to hit corners on a card where corners are not lit. But High Flyer, good game. Glad that went to a nice new home, and glad that Chad, and Len, Ed, and Ed were able to bring that out and set it up. And the fellows helped me set up and tear down as well. I'm always appreciative for that help. So thank you all very much. And also, Dennis Dodal came to the York Show, and John, his friend, as well came, and they brought the Silver Sails that was new in the box, brand new, and this was a sight to see. It was really very impressive. So that day, upon our arrival, we got there a little early, and they were still setting up the electrical. I've gotten to the point where I like to get there a little early, and then if there's something I can help do for the show, I can do that. This year, I wound up getting there a little bit later, and so I ended up socializing instead of helping, which is, probably not great, but anyway, it was good to see everybody, obviously, and had a good time, and I was able to unload before the rain came. There was a torrential downpour at the standard load-in time, so I'm glad that I managed to get that done, at least, before the skies opened up. But anyway, so Dennis came and helped him get the box out of the car, and that box is heavy. That is a really heavy box. So it was something to see. When the box was unloaded, I could look at the top of it, and 5 cents was written on and circled in a grease pencil or marker, and that told you which denomination was installed inside the box. I thought that was cool because the games could be ordered from the factory at either 5 or 10 cents, and maybe a quarter, but you would have been kind of on your own for that one at that time. So Silver Sails, 1962 game, Magic Screen game, extremely desirable game. The fact that one was found new in the box is just unheard of because they were extremely popular and they would have been routed if they could have been. So I believe the story goes that it was ordered by a distributor, and it was Central Distributing in Nebraska. And at the time, 1962, Bally was pretty worried about the legal climate. Some legislation was coming down. They weren't sure which way it was going to fall. Obviously, they were lobbying to allow for continued bingo production, but things were not looking good, and eventually they looked real bad. So Bally basically sold it to the distributor and said, here, if you want it, here you go. And then the distributor had to turn around and sell it very quickly before it became illegal to operate or transport. So they ended up putting it on closeout, and it was sold to an operator, and I believe the operator was in Minnesota, and by the time it got there, it wasn't viable to operate. Now, I may be wrong about some, or perhaps all of this story, but that's the basics as far as I know. So that's how it stayed in the box this whole time, because, well, you couldn't make any money off of it, and what else were you going to do with it? So you could take it out of the box and play it, I suppose, but the person who bought it to make money, and they couldn't do that. So kept it in the box until the legal climate changed, and I guess it never did, and then they still had it, and still had it, and still had it, and eventually that still had it turned into 56 years, and they finally decided to sell. So Dennis picked it up, brought it to York, and he is from far away. He had quite the drive with John all the way out there to York. So I'm extremely thankful that he made the trip, much less bringing the game that he did bring. So Saturday was the big... no, it wasn't. It was Friday. I'm sorry. Friday was the big unboxing event. And on Friday at 10:30 in the morning, we had a huge crowd gathered around. It was really cool to see. I was hopeful that it would turn out that way, and it did. I had a few people stationed taking video, but the crowds made it very difficult to take video in the way that I envisioned. So everybody kind of had to jockey for position, unfortunately. But they did a good job, and the videos that I've seen are amazing. And I'm going to compile together a video of the unboxing and post that on my YouTube channel. But before I do so, one Pinside user, Jeff C., has compiled his own video, and it's in the Bingo Row Pinside page. So I will link that in the show notes, and you can take a look at that at your leisure. So, this unboxing. Dennis opens the box and pulls out the head. The head is installed in the box backwards. So back glass in, which makes perfect sense. Everything is padded with a lot of cardboard, but not as much cardboard as you'd think. So there's the cardboard of the box, and then there's a little pad of shipping cardboard essentially under each part. So under the head and body, and then in between the head and the body. And on top of the body, there is a small cardboard box that is folded up. It has no top or bottom, so it's essentially just a square, but it fits in the notch of the body. If you can imagine the bingo pinball cabinet, the head is extremely large, and the cabinet itself is very small and lightweight. And the cabinet in the back has this notch cut out for the head to sit on. And there was a box that was sitting in that notch, basically. On top of the head, there was another box, and this is an actual box with top and bottom and everything. And in that box were the legs as well as the coin box. And the coin box contained the balls as well as the bolts to put the game together. The legs were painted red, and they did have the reinforced plate. There was some question about whether or not that was factory, and it was. The balls were magnet resistant from the factory, and not a one of them was rusted, which is crazy. I have no idea how that happened. The game itself was beautiful, by the way. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Never seen one that pristine, of course. Never seen one that's brand new. I have seen one that is pretty close, and that is Jim Holder's, and he brought it to the show a few years ago. But this is brand new, and there's nothing like brand new. All the wires were extremely vibrant, the color of them. There were a couple spots of corrosion. One of the zinc switch firming tabs. Whew, boy, for lack of a better term, cannot think of what that is called right now. But anyway, it's this small plate that sits behind a switch on one of the units. That had a bit of corrosion on it. Some of the Jones plugs had a light bit of tarnish on them. It wasn't bad, and it wasn't corrosion, but they were tarnished a little bit. And let's see, the shooter rod was extremely rusted. Why? I don't know. It was just the part that was inside the game. The part that was outside, totally fine. Why that is, I could not tell you. Must have something to do with being in that unheated warehouse for so many years. Perhaps some condensation built up. But the body itself was shooter rod down. So I would think gravity would help you in that situation, but I guess not. So very interesting. The paperwork was included. That was another question. Did you have to order it from the factory, or was it included with the game? And happy to say it was included with the game. The paperwork included the topper, which says for amusement only, no gambling. It included the manual, the schematic. It included a Jones plug chart, which is very handy. The Jones plug charts are reprinted within the manual or the schematic, depending on the game. So it's not like you're out of luck if you don't have this, but I thought it was pretty cool. It's like a blown up version. There's a letter to the operators that talk about how to set up your game so that you're not making it too hard and you're not making it too easy. And finally, there was a secondary instruction card, or scorecard rather, for 10-cent play. So you could set it up for 10-cent play even if you ordered the 5-cent version. And there was a small baggie behind the coin door that included parts to set your coin mech up to be a dime mech. I thought that was cool. So the game, again, absolutely beautiful. Another question that was answered was dead rubber, whether or not it shipped with the game, and it did. The red posts had the tan colored rubber as opposed to white on them. So that's it. The next question was reflex gears and what shipped with the game. I can confirm that number 3 shipped with the game, and that the game had a number 5 that could be swapped in. The deal with the reflex gears is that the smaller the number, the more liberal the game would be, and the larger the number, the tighter it would be. So if you swapped in that number 5, for example, it would make it harder to achieve features and odds jumps at an accelerated pace. Number 3 is run-of-the-mill, middle of the road. So it's neat to see that that is what shipped with it. Question had to do with the keys and what stock was used. I can confirm that Fort Lock Company was a supplier of the keys, and the stock used for the back door and the side rails was number 758, and for the front door, it was a different stock altogether, and it was just labeled Duo, and it had what appeared to be a serial number of E7122. The next question. The 8 balls that were shipped were magnet resistant, as I mentioned before, but they were shipped with no grease or any other coating of any kind. The box that they were in was just a little cardboard box, and it was actually kind of a fancy little box, but it didn't have any grease or any other packing material. The balls just fit exactly inside of it, and that was it. Purpose-built box. Kind of cool. The score and instruction card package I went over, and I talked about the tacks a little bit, I believe, but the envelope contained these tacks, and the apron had the score and instruction cards tacked to them. And if you wanted to change out the scorecard, you could, but you risked breaking a tack, and so they included 2 extra tacks. I'm surprised they didn't include 4, because there were 4 tacks tacking that card down, but 2 is better than 0, I suppose. There were absolutely no spare parts that were included with the game, not even a spare light bulb, no spare tubes of lube or anything of that nature. Very interesting that they wouldn't include any kind of maintenance stuff with the games, but then again, the people who were operating these probably operated a whole fleet of them, and so they knew exactly what to expect. Just very interesting. The packing material I talked about already was strictly cardboard, and there was only a piece of cardboard between the back glass and the cabinet, and that piece of cardboard in particular had these 2 extra cardboard rectangles that were glued to either side of the piece of cardboard, and they're made out of extremely durable corrugated, and they were about 2.5 inches tall, these rectangles off of this piece of cardboard, and they ran the entire length of the box. Very interesting. The box opened from the side, also unusual, compared to modern games and the way their boxes open. So very cool. I thought it was very easy to get the game out in comparison as well. So the game itself, once it was set up, needed very little. I hand tested each motor as well as each stepper. The motors turned freely and were just fine, and the steppers moved by hand very easily as well. I did not lift the playfield and hand test the shutter motor, but I was encouraged upon testing the control unit and mixer motor that the shutter motor would probably work as well. So that was very exciting. One thing also that was interesting was the playfield glass. It wasn't rounded at all. It wasn't even smooth. And Dennis unfortunately cut himself pulling that playfield glass off initially. It was very sharp, so I managed to borrow a pair of gloves from somebody, and I was able to clean the glass. Thanks again to Len for those, because the glass was fairly dirty, I guess, from rubbing up against that cardboard for all those years. But it cleaned very easily, and it looked nice, looked like a piece of glass. So it's just unfortunate that it's so sharp, and it puts into perspective some of the games that I've had before which didn't have tempered glass, or if they did have tempered glass, maybe they had sharp edges as well. And hey, I guess that's how it was. Just very interesting. Anyway, what a beauty. That game was just amazing. And it was a lot of fun to play. And speaking of that, Dennis got the first game, of course, as is only right. And he really, I could tell, was pretty excited that the game actually fired up. So that was cool. He played a game, and then I played a game, and I racked up a pretty big game and got the gate feature to light. And so my goal was to hit the gate feature and start the golden game. Well, I hit the gate feature, put 3 balls in the purple section, and then held down the R button, and unfortunately the game got stuck. The sequence unit locked on. So I manually stepped it all the way up and then reset it, and it got stuck again. So thankfully Phil Bogema was there, and he had the presence of mind to tell me the relay that needed to be hit in order to start the golden game. Position 29 is the relay for starting the OK game, but to start the golden game you need position 33. So I went in the back of the game and manually triggered that relay. All the balls dropped, the golden sections were revealed, and the game started anew. So I was excited to see that worked. That's a feature that's unique to Golden Gate and Silver Sails, and as with just about anything in the game, we weren't really sure, even if the game fired up and played, would it score, would it do anything? Were there going to be adjustments needed? And it seems like very few were actually needed. I lost the golden game because I'm an excellent player, and then Steve Smith, my friend here, who taught me everything I know about bingos, came up, and he got a hit in the section and got a sectional win, and that worked the sequence unit, and that worked just fine. So after that, the game was pretty much okay. Unfortunately, I walked away from the game at one point, and somebody got some kind of sectional hit, and I didn't realize that was going on, and the sequence unit locked on again, and the coil started smoking. Shut the game off, and of course waited for the coil to cool down, and once it did, hand tested it, it was fine. Started the game back up, and it was fine after that. Everything worked just fine. So the game needed very, very little out of the box. That selection feature unit, which I mentioned, needed to be rebuilt. But in order to do that, you have to pull the back glass and fold the back box down. And, that's beyond what you kind of want to do at a show. That game wasn't on free play, so occasionally I would reach in and put 50 or so credits on the register if somebody wasn't winning, and keep people playing that way. Steve came back and hit a golden game for 450 credits at one point. Sorry to cut you short there, Steve. And just amazing. I mean, it paid perfectly. Everything worked. Just great. So Friday and Saturday we had a bunch of winners come through. I was not doing as much of the teaching as I normally do because I was embroiled in various conversations. People wanted to talk about the multi, how it worked, what it was, all that kind of stuff. So I wound up doing a lot more chatting about that. Spoke with a very nice man about gambling and gambling games, and whether or not this was a skill game, and all that might entail. And so we had a very lengthy discussion about the games. And anyway, all that to say, we did have a lot of winners, but unfortunately I was not quite as present as I normally was because jazzed about the unboxing and everything that was going on there. So Friday I was a little out of it, but we did have a lot of winners then as well. Saturday was another big day. That's typically the biggest day for the public. A lot of people come in on Saturday, to check out the show and play some games and all that. And so we had a lot of activity in Bingo Row again. Had a couple of first-time owners come up and ask a couple questions and try to figure some stuff out. Had some long-time Bingo Row enthusiasts come by. That's always good to see. Hit their four in the line, get their prize. And for the prize this year, Ryan Clater illustrated a beautiful poster. And one of the things that I wanted to do, because I wasn't as present as I probably should have been on Friday, is that I wanted to do a little giveaway here on the show. And if you can send me a picture of a 5 in a line that you put together, and no cheating, this is the honor system, but I mean, come on, you got to do it. If you can send me a picture of you putting one of those together, then I will be happy to ship you your very own Bingo Row print. And these are beautiful. They are art. It is not a poster on glossy paper. It is gorgeous. So they're hand numbered and hand signed by the artist. So definitely these are something that you want. So if you're able to put together a 5 in a line, send me a picture at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, and I will be happy to shoot you out your very own print. So that was the end of the show. Saturday, it was over too quickly, but before it ended, there was a bit of a surprise. Over the past couple years, the White Rose Game Room Show has started doing Best in Show awards and a People's Choice Award. And these are the only 2 pinball awards that they gave out. And guess what? The Multi Bingo won Best in Show Pinball, Best Pinball, and Silver Sails won the People's Choice. So out of the entire show, the only 2 pinballs that won were Bingo pinballs. I think that is extremely significant and very, very cool. I can't believe that happened, but I am so honored and thrilled that was the case. So Dennis and I won on the show that Dennis brought the Silver Sails to. I think that is very special. So that is something that I'm going to treasure in my memories for some time to come. And with that award came a plaque. I've got this beautiful plaque that is hanging up in my game room. And again, I'm just beside myself. I can't believe that was the case. So thank you to everybody who made that possible, everybody who voted for the Silver Sails that attended the show. Thank you. Everybody at the show that chose the Multi Bingo. I mean, that's crazy to me. It's been a lot of work, a labor of love to put that together, but the fact that it's recognized by the community is again something special to me. So thank you. And with that, it was time to go. So took the games apart. As I was taking the multi apart, there's a whole team of people helping me take the caravan apart. And as we were closing the door on the game, unfortunately, the side of the cabinet split. The side of the head. And it's the side, of course, that had all the weight from the door. So that was unfortunate. Luckily, Len and Chad were on hand, as always. Johnny on the spots there, and they had some stretch wrap, and they were able to stretch it closed, and that survived the trip home. And it's going to be glued and clamped, and it should be good as new. Just kind of crazy that happened right at the end. I'm glad that it did. That game was actually for sale, and I'm actually really thrilled that it didn't sell, because if that had happened to the person that bought it, I would have felt terrible. So that's a good thing. and I should have that fixed before too long. At the moment, I've been working on something slightly different. But before I finish up, I did want to say thank you to everybody who came out to play the multi-bingo, to play the games in Bingo Row, everybody who brought games, and especially Dennis, Mickey, Mike, Bingo Butch, John, Jim, and Jeffrey Lawton, of course. Everybody contributes and makes it such a special event, and everybody loves playing the games. It's so gratifying to have this community kind of rally together and do something special. Very fun, and something I look forward to all year. Thank you to the show promoters and the show owner, and of course all the staff. You make the show very special as well, and everybody that brings games, not just the bingos. But this year, Wood Rail Row was set up right behind Bingo Row, and I was able to turn around at a few points and play the different wood rail games, and I just love the wood rails. So much fun. There was a beautiful Cupid doll, which I'd never played before. Beautifully restored Hit and Run, and many other games. Williams Sweethearts, that was an interesting game. And Gottlieb Dragonette, Williams Ragmop, and the Genko Screwball, which was there as well. And that was a slight retheme. But all the games played very well. I'm always thrilled that people are willing to share the older games. Steve Smith brought the Kilroy that I poked at a little bit. So that was good. And yeah, everything held up very well at the show. It's always cool. I haven't brought a wood rail yet, but it's certainly on the list, assuming I ever slow down and stop making games, because I've got kind of a list of things that I want to do for next year and the year following, and we'll see if I can follow through with that. So, what have I been doing? Well, been taking it a little easy. To tell you the truth, I have just needed a little rest. I've got some stuff going on with my family and just getting that all squared away. So just need a little bit of time. But I'm starting to edge back into pinball a little bit. And I have a playfield swap that I need to do for a Gottlieb sing-along. I purchased a sing-along, and it was in really rough shape. So I located another playfield for it. This playfield is not a whole heck of a lot better, except for the fact that the original playfield had been hand-painted freehand and using the wrong colors, and just, it's a mess. So this replacement playfield has a little bit of wear, but it certainly looks much better from an artistic standpoint. I have that playfield stripped, the new one, and I have to move over all the mechanisms and lamps and everything. The sockets on the new playfield were completely corroded and likely wouldn't have functioned. So rather than have to deal with replacing all those anyway, I just said, forget it, let's replace the whole harness. And the harness had been cut on the new playfield, so there were no plugs or anything. Not a huge loss to take that all apart. Only a couple of mechs were missing. Just a few parts had been taken from it, but it would have been quite difficult to get that back up and running rather than just swap over the known good harness from this playfield. So that's, I think, what I'm going to do, but I haven't quite decided yet, because I may end up doing kind of a mini restoration on that new playfield and do a bit of painting, because it's got some pretty noticeable wear in several spots. So I'm thinking about, masking and painting, but we'll see. That might be ambitious. At the moment, what I'm thinking of doing, there is one relay that was cut off of the original game that I had with the bad playfield. And otherwise, that playfield was complete. It was just really gross. And so what I might end up doing is putting that relay on and then getting the game running. And while the game is playable, work on restoring that other playfield. When the playfield's restored, I'll reassemble it, and then, should have a shiny, new-looking playfield. But I'm not quite certain yet if that's the direction I want to go or not. I could just swap over the harness and then get it running after that, but I'm thinking that I'm probably going to want to do just a little bit of artistic work with it, because I would hate to do all that work and then not be satisfied with how it looks. So anyway, expect to hear more about that in the upcoming months. I am going to pause that for a little bit and work on the caravan head that I mentioned. And once that is fixed, and I think they might have used 2 different pieces of wood in order to make that one side of the head, because of how cleanly it's split. And there was a little biscuit down at the bottom of it, or near the bottom of it. Seems odd that they would have included the biscuit otherwise. But it also seems odd to me that they would have used that for a side panel, because structurally it would have been weak, and there's so much weight on that side. Anyway, like I said, I'm just happy that it didn't happen to whoever bought the game, because that would have been a disaster for them. And luckily there were 4 or 5 people that were standing around and could hold the door when it came off. So that was good. The other thing that I'm working on is Robo Frenzy. So I was able to trade that part that I had ordered on eBay and didn't look at very closely, that didn't have a reset solenoid, and trade it out for the correct part. So I managed to pick that up at York, and now I need to figure out how to fit it in the cabinet. And I've been thinking about that, but haven't done any dry fitting yet. I'll be doing that soon, and then it'll be time to screw it down and then start wiring. But essentially, the problem that I have is that it's going to be mounted somewhat near where the coin entrance is, and I don't want coins bouncing up and hitting the switches. If it is down in the bottom of the cab, which is another possibility, I don't want coins bouncing and landing on that side of the cab. Either side, there's going to be a relay bank on either side, and shorting out some of those relays. So I'm thinking I'm going to have them mounted so that they are facing down, meaning the armature that pulls down when the relay pulls in would be towards the bottom of the cabinet. But I'm not quite settled on that yet, because I'm going to have these steering mechanisms on either side, and I need room in order for those to maneuver, and I haven't quite decided how that's going to function yet. So all that to say, things are a little complicated with that project, because I've got to make sure that any move that I make now doesn't create a problem down the line. And Ryan and I have some fairly ambitious plans for how lamps will work within the game, and I need to make sure there's room for that to happen. So we'll see. And speaking of Ryan, he made it all the way down to York as well, and it was great to see him. He and I shared a hotel room, but we probably said about 10 words to each other the whole weekend. It was so busy. So anyway, it was great to see him and to catch up a little bit. And just York is a wonderful show, and I would encourage anybody to go see it, play the games. Come see me, come play the bingos, come play the wood rails. Where else are you going to play such a eclectic collection of wood rails? I mean, it's not every day that you're going to find a single flipper Williams game, some very highly regarded two flipper Gottlieb games, and some impulse flipper Williams games, all kinds of interesting things. Exhibit's New Contact was there, and that is a game that has these spring-loaded pop bumpers, some of the first ones that were designed. Very cool mechanism, and something I wouldn't mind having on a game. Gave the ball a lot of action. Very interesting to watch. Beautiful, in fact. So there were other games there too. There was a Gottlieb merry-go-round from the 1930s and a Rockola World's Fair jigsaw. It's an amazing show, and I don't know how many times I can say that, but you should all come to it. Make your plans for next year, early October, and just a great time. All right, well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to me on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to me on my website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.